Hi everybody. This is our first week in XML design and we're looking at an eagle's eye view of XML today, trying to get the big picture from on high. First, let's talk about what is XML. We need a little bit of background to see what we're going to be working with. The letters XML stand for Extensible Markup Language. And it's not so much a programming language, but it is a syntax used for documents. It's one of the meta markup languages, and we'll see several other examples of what those are. It is a structural and semantic language not used for formatting, the way HTML is. And it's not just used for web pages, although I know a lot of you are looking forward to doing that. Now, in some ways, it's not like HTML. HTML uses predefined tags. And the difference with XML, if you're familiar with HTML, you know lots of tags like body, heading, title, paragraph. Instead, in XML, you get to make up the tags that you need as you need them. So you can put any words inside your tag definitions. The tags you create can be then documented using a document type definition, which will come a little further on down in the course. Now, talking a little bit more about what a meta markup language is, it's a meta syntax or a greater syntax used to define domain-specific markup languages. And one of the most basic ones is SGML, which stands for Standardized General Markup Language, and also XML. They're both meta markup languages. Now, HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, is a markup language that was defined using SGML. And some of the other meta markup languages included can be things like Music ML, Math ML, and CML, which is for chemical markup language. Now, XML often describes a structure and semantics. HTML often is used for formatting and XML is not. XML documents form like a tree of data. There's elements and attribute names, and they reflect the kind of the element. There's also formatting that can be added with style sheets, but it's not part of XML itself. It's an external structure or external file that we'll learn about. Here's we're going to compare next a couple of examples of coding. This one's a song description in HTML, and we see on the left the HTML coding for a song called Hot Cop, and that's using a definition term tag, and then the DD tags, or definition data tags, underneath that have the names of the people who composed the song. And then under that we see UL, or unordered listing, and that includes a list item for the producer, list item for the publisher, list item for the length of the song, list item when it was written, and list item for the artist, which is Village People. And we can see on the right when a browser interprets this HTML code what it would look like. We see the Hot Cop is on top, and then the by Jacques Morelli, Henry Bellello, and Victor Willis is underneath and inset a bit. Then we see bullet points, and that's what the list item tags give for each of the other items in the unordered list. And this is what looks different about XML. It's the same song, but we see a start and end tag called song. We see a title tags. We see composers, and there's a different composer start and end tag for each of the three composers. We see the producer has a tag, publisher, Polygram Records, length, as tags, year as a beginning and end tag, and the artist as beginning and end tag. And I don't have a separate, this is what it would look like box, because if you just type this out and post it and view it in a web browser, it would look exactly the same way you'd see it here. And we compare side by side some of the HTML coding. We can see, you can kind of compare how the same things start and end, and see how the data is used with different kinds of tags. Again, HTML tags are all predefined that you have to use when you're coding with HTML. XML tags, you can put whatever words in to describe the data you're sharing to make up your own tags. So what is XML used for? And there's a lot of things. We're going to look at some domain-specific markup languages. We've talked about those a little bit. It's also used for self-describing data. And then one of the most important things it does is the interchange of data among applications or between different kinds of applications. And of course, you can also use it for web pages, which I know a bunch of you want to do. Now, when we talk about domain-specific markup languages, one of the best things about XML is you don't have to pay for it. It is free. It's a non-proprietary format, and you don't pay for what you don't use. It's very flexible, and you can use it with any internet browser. You don't have to have a special program or high-end backside server data or compile anything to use XML. So that makes it very accessible when you're developing web applications. Again, as we looked a little bit at the tags in the previous slides, it is self-describing data. A lot of data is lost when we move it between different kinds of programs, or you have to go in and fix it. And it can be a real problem. So XML makes transferring data very simple. And it's also self-describing. Remember, we had a title tag, composer tags, artist tags. So it describes the data that's in there, and XML is very well documented. And some of the applications that use data in particular for XML include e-commerce, because as we've gotten more and more dependent on buying things online, sharing data back and forth through different kinds of e-commerce applications is working very well with XML. There's also syndication, and if you know that orange button on some of your web browsers, the really simple syndication, or RSS feed, is used with XML formatting, and we'll be looking at that next week. And then sharing data between different kinds of applications, whether it's enterprise application integration or EDI, electronic data interchange. XML makes it very simple and clean. You don't end up losing data. So there's some related technologies built into the use of XML, and there may be some that you're already familiar with. Let's look at those. HTML is used for backwards compatibility with XML. It also uses cascading style sheets, which we'll learn towards the end of the class, and extensible ESL, extensible style language. And these are different kinds of style sheets used to define the appearance of XML documents. So it doesn't have to just look like tagged data on the screen. Also, URLs and URIs relating to places on the web specify the locations of XML documents, whether you're locating one document or you're grouping a bunch of documents together to form a page. There's also X-links used to connect XML documents to each other, and you also need to use a Unicode character set to encode the text for XML. So Looking back at some of the concepts for this week, I want you to hold on to from our eagle eye view. XML is a meta markup language. XML tags describe the structure and semantics of a document's content. XML documents are created in an editor, and it can be any text editor you want. It's read by a parser and then displayed by a browser. And you probably want to use both in the class. Use both Internet Explorer and Firefox. They both interpret or display XML a little bit different. And I'll give you a hint up front. Firefox is better at debugging, helping you debug your XML files. XML on the web works on the foundations of HTML, cascading style sheets, and URIs. And there's lots of supporting technologies using XML. That's it for this week. And I look forward, if you have any questions, write them on the discussion board. And we'll all look for answers together. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.